John, thanks for being on the program. I know an issue a lot of Texans are talking about and looking at. Lawmakers expected to dive into this at another special session more deeply. What can these funds specifically be used for that your group is pushing for most responsibly and aggressively in terms of what lawmakers should do with them?
Thank you. It's a rare opportunity we have as a state. We're sitting on $15.8 billion in state fiscal relief funds that have pretty broad allowable uses. First and foremost, we're going to have to use them to address the ongoing COVID crisis. But beyond that, there's going to be billions of dollars left over that we think the state and lawmakers should be considering what kind of long-term investments can we really make to help our state solve problems that won't just help us in the short term, but can help knock out decades-long problems.
What does that look like? I mean, are you talking infrastructure, broadband access? I know has been talked a lot about, expanding broadband. What would your organization like to see specifically?
Yeah, so those are two great examples. Obviously, there's also another federal infrastructure bill on its way that will have some of that component in there. But when we're looking at options that can really help the state in the short term, we can talk about fixing the grid. What can we do about weatherization and transmission, investments in new energy technologies? What can we do for our state parks, which have been, gotten a lot of love, but also faced a significant strain over the course of this pandemic? What can we do to overhaul state IT so that we don't have some of the technological issues that we've had over the last year and a half going forward? What can we do about our state's long-term water needs? These are big problems that can take oftentimes hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in costs. And that's the kind of money we're talking about right now with this federal stimulus funding.
This doesn't all have to be spent right now, correct? I mean, what's the benefit in spending some of it now versus waiting?
Yeah, some portion of it realistically will be held and addressed in 2023 during the next legislative session. But as we think about what the federal rules are with regards not just to appropriating these, but actually expending the money, there's a real need to kind of create a plan for how we're going to get this money out the door so that we can make sure every cent is used to its full potential.
What about the current COVID response? I mean, we're seeing another wave of this and just how much that money, or you think lawmakers should spend that money on what we're dealing with right now, whether that be increased testing, I know the vaccines are coming in through the federal government, but some of how that money should be spent there.
Yeah, obviously responding to the ongoing crisis remains of the utmost priority. That is a specifically allowable use of these funds. But when the volumes of dollars we're talking about are on the table, we can knock that out and should knock that out and should be very conservative in our estimate there. But there will be money left to solve some big structural problems for our state. And just the volume of money we're talking about, this is more than was invested in Europe for the Marshall Plan. Yeah. That's the kind of dollar signs we're talking about. So we can both tackle COVID and tackle one or two major issues that our state can face and make generational change happen to make sure our, 20 years of economic growth in the past becomes 20 years of economic growth in the future.
I do want to put up a graphic from your group kind of showing this. I mean, we're talking specifically about the $16 billion. I know you're addressing even more of that. There's $117 billion for state and local governments from the federal government to be spent. What has some of that already been spent on? And kind of, as you're talking about just setting the state up for progress into the future.
Yeah, so a lot of this has been spent, as you would expect, on the COVID response. A lot of it has been spent on essential workers and public health entities and all the police and firefighters who have been helping to make all this possible over the last year and a half. But there's also a good chunk in there to tackle our massive learning loss issues and keeping our schools open and safe. So that there's a good $17 billion in money dedicated to education mixed in that as well. So this is $117.5 billion across 6 bills from Congress. We have a chance to have state and local government work together to cooperatively solve a lot of these big problems that our state can tackle over the next few years.
John Hryhorchuk with Texas 2036. A good look at this. We'll continue to check in with you guys as we progress and see more of this money being spent. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.